Okay, let's go. Hi, muckers. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing very, very, very well. So I just got back to New York. We had a lot of fun on the last couple shows. We did Orlando, we did Houston, we did Atlanta. Thank you so much to everyone who came out. It was a lot of fun. Now we're doing Phoenix next week, San Diego, and then San Francisco, and then we come back to New York. So if you're in New York and you want to come to my independent little night out after I finish up with the tour, I have booked myself a show, the Tortured Muckers Department in Brooklyn, one night only, July 11th. We have less than 100 tickets left, so thank you so much because we're getting really close to selling it out. So if anyone in New York wants to come to that, I would love to see ya. And also the Patreon is linked down below. We have a bunch of extra content reacting to Beast Games, to Escape the Night, to little podcasts. Come hang, it's fun. So let's talk about Be Better. So Be Better is a creator who is very, very, very controversial right now. And if you do not know who this is, don't worry, you will very soon. I know there's a lot of mess going on with James Charles. I think is allegedly trying to sue Be Better and come after them because of what we're going to watch today. It's an interview with Be Better in which they sit down with Zack Sellers. Maybe it's Zack Sellers that James is coming after. We're going to dive into all of it, okay? And this interview is basically exposing James Charles for kind of what we've been seeing go down over the last couple of weeks with Kayla and Evan and James' involvement and him lying to Kayla. And, James made this response video, and a lot of people were really confused as to why I reacted to James' response video to this before I reacted to this. Honestly, truthfully, if he's threatening to sue someone over talking about this specific interview and has released a video in real time saying if anyone's going to cover this, I'm going to come after you too. It felt more important to me, honestly, to react to his response first and then get to this so I can't be accused of anything. So we heard his response. I believe very little of what comes out of James Charles's mouth. And I wanted to take my time with watching this and see what the big problem is with it, okay? And again, I'm aware that there are a lot of people online that have problems with Be Better. They have problems with Zack Sellers. That is fine. For today, I have heard so many people talk about this. I've had so many people recap it for me, but I just want to watch it myself. So let's get to it. This is investigating James Charles.
The real gravity of what she went through, and to encourage every single person to watch her videos, first and foremost, before they watch this, because I just don't want anything that we're speaking about today to overshadow her story. And with all that being said, I just want to allow you the opportunity to introduce yourself and your relationship to Evan.
Yes, so I'm Zack Sellers. I'm actually from Nashville, Tennessee. Me and Evan grew up in the same town, very small towns around the suburbs, so it would be a suburb of Nashville. We've always known of each other, but it's more of I knew of him, but never hung out with him. He come back from LA back in January. That's when him and Kayla had, taken a break, I believe, and that was more of a break. Once he came back to Tennessee, we immediately started actually hanging out because he reached out and was like, I want to get into modeling. Can you help me out with all of that? And he knew I was in the modeling industry. So
God, he loves to social climb, doesn't he? Evan? God.
He for sure wanted to me to help him through it. So that's how it all become about.
Right. So throughout the duration of your friendship with him, did you notice any red flags with him in the way that he behaved or anything looking back?
Looking back, believe it or not, I did not. There was times that it was always constant conversations of him saying, Zack, can you give me advice? What do I do if Kayla goes public? What do I need to do exactly? That kind of raised a little red flags because that was a constant question 24/7,
Sorry, that didn't raise flags in the moment. You have your new best friend telling you, what happens if my ex-girlfriend goes public about the things I put her through? And that's not a red flag. I'm sorry, what?
To me every single time we would hang out. And I asked him, I was like, what is the worst that happened between you guys so I can give you the correct advice? And the worst that he had, told me during that time was they were very verbal. Never, nothing was never physical. There was one time he said that for his protection, he had to hold her against the wall so she would not harm him. So at that time, when I say that, I was manipulated, I believed, Evan's side. I believed at one point, I did not know Kayla. I believed that she was, in the wrong. She was the evil person. Me looking back now, I know the true side.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that he was worried about Kayla going public because then the question is, what are you going public with? And if you didn't do anything wrong, why would you be worried about that?
Yes.
And then you mentioned also something about Reddit. He would tell you that not to check Reddit. Was that correct? Why did he say that?
So we would be in the car and he mentioned I'm all over Reddit.
The sign of the most innocent person you will ever know. Do not search my name up on Reddit. Someone telling you not to go on Reddit is so funny. I wish someone would tell me not to go on Reddit.
So I've never been the type of person to get on Reddit. It was not even downloaded actually on my phone.
Scary place.
Yes, it's scary after I got on there. But after he had dropped me off one night, I was like, something was telling me I need to get on Reddit, and I'm curious just to look up Evan Johnson. I look up Evan Johnson. The first picture I saw was Evan holding, a vape, and it was posted on his story. And I believe the wording was something around, guys, did you guys know that Kayla was a whore? And that's the first thing that popped up on Reddit. And I was like, okay, so I don't know if that was joking, but you still don't joke that way. Like, especially with your girlfriend, that's someone you love. You're joking around that, and you keep going, it's deeper and deeper. So I started like, okay, and I asked him about the, scenarios, and he goes, there's just so many haters. Like, this is the reason why I did not want to be in the public eye. I did not want my relationship in the public eye. And at that time,
I do not want to be in the public eye, yet I'm going to try social climb off you so you can make me a model.
I've not always been in the public eye. I'm on the backside of the modeling industry. So I was like, okay, I understand that 100%.
Wow. So at what point did you officially stop being friends with him? Was that like a specific moment in time?
The day that Kayla released part 1 of He Doesn't Love You, I watched it. I got to the end of it, and I cried by seeing what she went through. It's heartbreaking. it's Coachella's right now. Knowing that what it's in that video at the very end.
It's one of the most disturbing things I've ever watched, personally.
Yes.
And people have been saying all sorts of things. I think for the most part, she has a lot of support. But if you actually watch her videos, there's really no way to walk away from it feeling like she's lying or feeling like what happened wasn't extremely serious. And that's where it's frustrating, is some people just don't do the research. Everyone needs to watch those videos. And you obviously did the right thing by cutting him off after you learned all of that.
So I did text him, the day that she released it, after I got done watching it, and I texted him, WTF, I did not know you went that far, ... He come back with a long message, still manipulating me, saying that she's over-exaggerating, there's a lot more to, that message, but I just personally can't get into that message with legal matters, so I just want to, elaborate kind of what the message was about, but not get in word for word.
That makes sense. And can you also talk about, there was a video that you had filmed of Evan where he was sort of responding to some of these allegations, and you still have that video on your Snapchat, correct?
That is correct.
Can you walk me through what happened before that, and then maybe just like summarize what he said in that video?
Absolutely. So he picked me up from my house, and we were supposed to be going downtown to make some Snapchat content for his Snapchat, because he was on a creator fund with Snapchat, and he had to post so many Snapchats, and he didn't really have anyone. So he's like, Zach, will you go downtown? Let's go hang out. Like, we'll go to this hotel. You can see Nashville.
God, just this concept of, can we go hang out? I need to take Snapchats. As a society, we've gone too far.
All this, I'm from Nashville, so I'm well aware of these areas. And I was like, for sure. So we get down there, and he just gets very emotional, starts talking about, him and Kayla's relationship. And when I say that I heard about their relationship every day, I heard about it every single day. And there was new stuff, slowly coming out. But there was an influencer, a really big influencer, that was on the phone with him and was telling him that the best thing for him to do is to stay quiet, but go ahead and record some videos of him explaining his side of the story and the truth. And he says, this is going to only help your case, so go ahead and get these recorded as soon as possible and have them. Well, I never sent these videos back to Evan because they were taken on my Snapchat and they were saved on my phone. He never once ever asked for them. I don't know if he was so dumb that he forgot about them. I honestly don't know.
Wow. And what was he saying in that video? Sort of justifying his behavior? Was it, because I actually didn't watch the entire video. Maybe we can do that later, because I actually meant to.
Yes, absolutely. So
it was like 10 minutes, right? And
yes.
He was sort of, correct me if I'm wrong, just saying that Kayla was exaggerating and...
So he's pretty much beating around the bush without admitting, things that he had done. He, was always mentioning it takes 2 to tango. When I say that this man, I would not only...
The worst man of all time going, it takes 2 to tango, about what he's putting his ex-girlfriend through.
I want to call him a man because he's not a man, but that boy was literally speaking about takes 2 to tango, takes 2 to tango. That right there, that saying, I've really not heard it much. And he said, he spoke on that, saying so much. I was just thinking wow. But another big thing in those videos, he continued to wanting to get his word out there that there is a big influencer that is currently telling him exactly what to do and giving him the best advice, because this influencer has been through his own actions in the past or something close to these kind of things.
That garnered public scrutiny. So then elaborating on that, in the videos that you've posted to TikTok, you've obviously alluded to there being some kind of a connection between James Charles and Evan Johnson. So can you elaborate a little bit on maybe the first time that you ever saw Evan Johnson and James Charles?
Are we being told that James Charles was helping Evan through this, allegedly?
Charles interacting?
Yes, absolutely. So the first time was when he came to my house and picked me up. And when I say he came to my house and picked me up, that was usually, he was always the driver. I drive, but if he's going to offer to drive, I'm going to be like, okay, come pick me up. So I went to get into Evan's car at my house when he had come to pick me up, because we were planning on to go downtown once again, to do some more content. And as soon as I opened the door, Evan was on FaceTime, and they just all got quiet. And I heard James's voice, and it just got quiet. And then they were in a conversation, while I opened the door. So I get in the car, and shut the door. And James goes, "Oh, I'll let you guys go. If you're with friends, and definitely call me later so we can talk more about this." And then,
oh, this is so weird. This is so weird. And I think it's even weirder watching this after James's response, trying to debunk it, because, The
next thing was, Evan goes, "No, we can finish up a little bit. We don't really have nothing crazy planned. We're just going downtown to mess around, take some Snapchat stuff." And then James comes back and was like, well, do you trust him, Evan? And Evan at that time was like, absolutely. Like, this is probably the only person I would trust, like, hearing and speaking about any of this right here currently. At that time, I only knew Evan's side of the story. So
when you saw James Charles on FaceTime, did you know
James being like, is that someone you trust? What the fuck?
who he was?
By the voice, yes. And then I just looked over and it was James.
Right. Kind of hard to mistake him for someone else.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Drag.
there were other encounters. Was it like ongoing? And then also, were there any encounters where James was speaking specifically about Kayla?
Yes, there was. So that conversation that I actually, got in and interrupted, I now I have, caught on of why he was so like, do you trust him? Because they started picking up back on their conversation. And that's when James came back to Evan and was like, well, you didn't lose anything, Evan, out of this. If anything, you won. You got away from the psycho. She is the psychopath. Like, you were not the problem. She's the problem. She's been known to be the problem. She has been known to lie. She has been also known to make up complete fake stories just to get clout and have views. That's the only way. That's the only, that's the way she is today is how she's gotten by making up stories. I didn't know Kayla, so I was like, oh, wow. Like,
oh my gosh. Again, what's even crazier in all of this is that out of Kayla, James, and Evan, it was Kayla and James that knew each other before James and Evan. So, like, he can't even play the card of, oh my god, I knew this person first or whatever like that. Like, you went out of your way to befriend Evan. And also, the fact he's, like, allegedly, speaking on Kayla, but then not even responding to Kayla is like, oh.
I'm just in the passenger seat just listening and stuff. And then he goes, Evan, like, I'm here, like, for you no matter what. Like, whatever you need, let me know, call me. He says, also, when you get home later tonight, FaceTime me. I want you to FaceTime me. And he says, if we need to sleep on the phone, we can. I'm here for you.
Oh my god!
Oh. So were there other instances? Was it an ongoing thing where they were kind of constantly in communication?
They were in communication every single day. When I speak on that I was with Evan every single day, I was with Evan majority of every single day. The only time I was not with Evan was when he went to Miami and then when he went to California. The times that I was with him, James would use Instagram as his Snapchat. And I didn't know, like, was not aware, like, why does James not have Snapchat? Like, why is he using Instagram photos, sending back and forth?
I can tell you why he doesn't have Snapchat, because he was caught texting 16-year-old boys on Snapchat. That's what he was canceled for.
Wow.
So I assume he deleted his Snapchat and now he's using Instagram.
Yes. So the second encounter, I was wondering.
The lore drop there just goes crazy.
Because there was more to Evan just saying, like, James has asked me to come, stay with him, to come visit him, just to get away because he knows I'm going through depression.
Just to get away. James wants Evan to, he's going to fly him out to California, just to get away. Just to get away.
Well, there was, some pictures going back and forth, and it was just James, like, just got home, shirtless, and, just laying on his bed, and then he'll just be, like, in his room doing, like, something, angle like this and stuff like that, just trying to, I guess, look pretty for Evan. So Evan was engaging back with, pictures and, like, Evan to sit here and, like, pull his phone up and be like, stick out his tongue and stuff like that. Just kind of, trying to, I guess, engage into, like, what James is, like, I guess, trying to get to.
Right.
There was another time that we were in the car. And when I say we were in the car, that's obviously we done. We went to get in the car, go eat, go find something to do, go take some content for him and be done. And every single time, like, that was his go-to person. You got to think that Evan had me, but I'm not a celebrity. The only person he had after losing Kayla that he felt that he would be able to stay in the industry was James Charles.
Of course. Of course. Why aren't I surprised? Oh, this is so weird. And the fact that James is so quiet about his interactions with Evan as well is, like, very, very, very telling if there were multiple.
So he had to keep James Charles as close to him as possible. If not, then where would he end up? Nowhere, Like, he would not, there would be nothing out of that. But back to the next car time, there was a message back that James had sent to Evan and says, I have a big surprise for you when you get home. This is after we had left Nashville on the way back to Hendersonville, a local town that we actually are from and live in. So we get back, and little did James know that I actually went home with Evan. And when we get to Evan's house and in his room, Evan go, message him. They were messaging the whole time anyways. And he lets James know, like, hey, I'm like 5 minutes away from home. Okay, so letting James know, get ready and stuff. I don't know what, I was, like, confused by the surprise. Well, we get to Evan's room, and then he notices, like, Evan takes a picture of himself and is, like, obviously him in his room. And the next picture was James bent over on his bed with his ass up in the air and was showing his ass and didn't say anything in the first picture. Then messaged and said, like, how do you like that, daddy? Yeah.
God, when James allegedly said, a present for you when you're home or whatever, I thought there was genuinely gonna be, like, a present. Like, oh my god, not a fucking ass in air pic. How you like that, daddy? Allegedly. Whoa. God! Oh! Oh, oh no, no, no. Oh. I have heard too much about what James Charles be doing on that phone.
I'm smiling because I'm uncomfortable. And I want to also reiterate, James is 26 years old and Evan is 20 at this point.
Yes, I'm 20.
Oh my God.
No, that's not an illegal age difference. There's just something so disturbing to me about this being a pattern. But I'll let you continue. So
during that time,
whoa, I did not know that. That is crazy.
I am aware that Evan had previously sent some saved photos of, his private parts. And I just want to let you guys know that the next picture was like a picture, but it said video, but there was no talking in it. And it just had a caption on it. And James was bent over completely naked on the bed and said, "Daddy, I want your big." So I was like, Evan, like, what are you doing? Because like, I don't know if you're leading him on or what, but I don't know what you're doing at this time because it can always backfire on you. So don't do that. It's like if that's the case. And he said that wasn't the case.
As shocking as this is, never forget that this is who James knew more, Kayla, his acquaintance at the time's ex-abusive boyfriend. And James is doing this after knowing about all that.
The case that James come to him.
I guess I'm also wondering, in what your role in this was, Evan sharing the snaps with you? Were you looking over his shoulder? Like, how did you see it? Was he kind of showing you and thought it was funny? Like,
so at the beginning, he was showing me the snaps and thought I guess it was funny.
Funny, like, oh look, I'm snapping James Charles.
And I'm getting, pictures.
Yeah.
But as time went by, it seemed like the friendship/relationship got very private.
Right.
After it got very private, James had changed.
Also, James has been making it out that like him and Evan really didn't know each other for that long as well, which makes this crazy.
Changed the mode on Instagram to Vanish mode.
He's been known to do that.
So everything that was getting sent, it would like get sent and be completely gone. A message would be go away, just like Snapchat. So I was like, oh, okay. So there's a lot more. There was one time that Evan was driving and he's like, Zach, can you text James back? And the message I had to send back to James was, I can't wait to see you. That was, word for word that, Evan had me speak and send that because he was driving. And I'm in a bachelor's, like, I'm not wanting to die in a car wreck. So like, I was like, okay, yes, I will do that for you.
And in your interactions with Evan, were you guys often drinking together? Was that sort of the nature of your friendship where you were going out partying?
So it actually started off with us like neither one drinking. I'm not a big drinker like whatsoever. So it started that he was depressed. And I will speak on the first week, with the Kayla and him, like splitting ways. He was very, very depressed. There was an incident the night that Kayla had officially, let things go and came to senses. And I'm so glad she came to the senses to like get away from the that psychopath. But he attempted to commit suicide. I was very scared. No matter what, I'm the type of person, I don't want to see anyone do that. No matter what the actions they're going through, no matter what they have done, I don't want, and I'm not going to condone like, oh yeah, go do that, or I'm not going to support you. At that time, I had to support him. And he called me and he was at his house and said that I just took a bunch of Xanaxes. And I was like, what? Like, what are you doing? Like, why? So I had his location. I immediately rushed to his house. Well, he wasn't inside of his house. He was literally down the road in his car. And I mean, it was early in the morning. Like, it was later in the morning, like not 8 o'clock. I would say like maybe around 5 or if 4:45, 5. And he was in his car and he was already passing out. I immediately went to his pulse. He had a pulse, but was like not waking up for me, like whatsoever, like not waking up at all.
Do you know what prompted that?
The breakup. And when I say, also, I just don't want to say the breakup. Deep down, me knowing what the world knows about what Kayla has come forward about, now I do see why, that he went that route because he kept asking Kayla, like, do you plan on going online? Why, like, can we keep this private? Like, this is going to ruin.
Again, I just don't understand why it's not focused on enough that, like, these people decide to do things like this once they're finally broken up with because they know eventually that person, the other person, might speak up against them and say what they've done. And then that's their... I could talk about that for ages.
So his primary concern was her going public, not her mental health.
Yes, he was not worried about Kayla's mental health. He was not worried about Kayla at all. He was worried about his reputation and if it was going to hurt him or if he was going to get in trouble.
Because he had really just started building a following, which was exclusively due to the fact that he was dating Kayla Malik.
Yes.
Okay, so you were saying there was an episode where he attempted to unalive himself. And how did that end?
It ended with I was rushing to, his location because it said that it was like his house, but it wasn't the exact address. So it makes sense like why it was a couple doors down. I don't know if he was planning on going somewhere and the medication had already kicked in. So once I got to him, I already had brought Gatorade, finally got him awake, kept keeping up with his pulse. At one point when I first got there, I did attempt to start CPR, but it was only because for 10 seconds there was no pulse.
So this is actually, I just got chills because this is the second time I've heard the story because in Kayla's stories, in Kayla's YouTube videos, she had said that this similar thing had happened where he drank so much alcohol, he lost consciousness and she had thought he died and she had to resuscitate him. Very interesting that this happened.
Yeah, it was very scary. It was very traumatic for me.
Call the police, ambulance.
After I got him up, that's the first thing he woke up and he was like, Zach, like, he knew who I was after waking up. I just don't know if I was supposed to start the CPR because obviously like he wasn't like completely out of it. But once he woke up, he was, delusional a little bit, but he knew who I was. And I planned on to call 911, but he started yelling, do not call, do not go to my parents' house. Like, I'm fine. I said, well, first thing is I will drive you back home and you can go in and go to sleep. But I actually sat there for like 45 minutes with him to talk to make sure that he was getting better before I just drop him off at his house and he goes in and something happened to him. So I tried, and he was awake. He was just very drowsy. So I don't know if it just all kicked in and just at one point just kind of hit him hard. But I refused to let him take his car back. He's like, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. He was very demanding that he was fine, that he can handle all of this. And I'm like, for one, you just attempted to commit, Yes, I look back and I should have, called, the EMS and 911. But that was, the beginning of our friendship. And there was just so much going on during all the time. So I was just.
Do you think it could be because he was on probation that he didn't want you to call 911?
Knowing now, it absolutely was. Because.
Wow, that's also such a good point that I didn't think of. Also, it's crazy to me that, he was on probation and all like this, and now he's, locked up, and I'm like, deserved. Also, the little sentence that he got, I'm trying to remember how much his sentence was again. I can't believe it's not longer. The system is so fucked up. Speaking of the system.
Because I was told by Evan that he got in some trouble a while back, and I have known about it because this sounds like small town, but he told me he got in trouble and that he only had I think it was I believe it was a month left for probation because I'm the one that actually helped him write his essay for his probation officer. So I believed, I was like, oh, he's pretty much done. Well, let's just say that he lied to me. He just got put on probation, and I believe he only has served 7 months to this day of probation, and he signed a 4-year probation
He is
deal.
clearly a pathological liar based on everybody I've spoken to. So, that sounds very traumatizing, just even for you personally, to see your friend, you may think that they passed away and have to resuscitate them.
It was terrifying.
Affect you?
It was very terrifying. I am CPR certified. I have been a lifeguard, in my younger years, for years, and I actually can teach, upcoming lifeguards get their certifications in the United States and stuff like that through the YMCA. So it was very traumatic, but obviously there's so much, things going around the world now that so much, things are fake. Drugs are fake. Majority of stuff has got fentanyl in. Luckily, I believe that he got a hold of something that was either weak of what, the benzo had in it or didn't only have a certain amount and it didn't have any fentanyl. Because if it would have had fentanyl, I would have not gotten woken up.
Right. So let's go back a little bit to James Charles' involvement. Would it be fair to say that you felt like the nature of their relationship was definitely sexual?
It was 100% sexual.
Oh.
And what kind of things did you
Oh
witness?
my God.
So based off of, all of the messages of the messaging 24/7, the pictures that I, previously did not want to see, but I saw, and the video of him, in the back and then with the
Oh
same,
my God.
obviously that, getting that done. And then I just knew it turned sexual because Evan was engaging back, but I felt like Evan just was playing a game, but James was very, very serious. James started the friendship as I'm here.
Also, yeah, I was literally about to say this. We have got to acknowledge that James Charles loves a vulnerable person. Loves a vulnerable person. You're being canceled and the internet hates you. Oh my God, I went through a similar thing. Show me your cock. Oh, you are a 16, 14-year-old boy who follows me and knows that if I talk to you, you're going to get, you could end up getting in the industry and whatever like that. Oh, send me, we could go on and on and on about the fact that James Charles loves a vulnerable person because no non-vulnerable person who's looking for, a millionaire's help or someone in the industry or whatever like that, no one else wants him. No one else wants him. That's why he has to go to young boys. That's why he has to go to people who are vulnerable. He needs that. Without that, who is James Charles?
Here for you. I've been through the same kind of things. I want to give you advice. Listen to me. So I had went on my TikTok because when I say that I stand for Kayla, I stand for Kayla 100%, and I have her back for the rest of my life. She does not deserve what she went through. No female deserves what she went through, or anyone in general deserves what, Kayla had went through. It's traumatic. This is something that's going to take years for her, years, if she ever can completely recover, which more likely you can't completely recover on these kind of things. So I was nervous because obviously James Charles has such a huge platform. I was very nervous, but I was like...
And that's what he relies on. This suppression, being scared, he's gonna sue you. His followers are going to attack you. Like,
I have to do this for Kayla. Like, what I am doing, this is for Kayla and standing out, because
He might be the biggest social media influencer in the world who's not a traditional celebrity.
absolutely.
I think that's accurate, like 100 million followers.
Yes.
Do you feel comfortable if I read some of the messages between you?
Absolutely. But so just a little of how the messages came about. I posted my first video on TikTok, and not even 5 minutes of my video being posted of me calling James out that him and Evan, were together in California and that he flew him out. 5 minutes later, James Charles was at Coachella on that Sunday, the first weekend, and he was texting me at Coachella, and I give you permission to go ahead.
Within 5 minutes of you posting that video,
5 minutes.
he reached out to you.
I didn't even have 500 likes on that video.
That's insane to me. It's like he
Kind of creeped me out.
He must have someone looking out for these types of videos to see if he can squash them as early as possible, because this is reputation management. If there's people who do this as for careers, I wouldn't be surprised that there's a team just constantly searching for anything and then they flag the video.
That's very true.
So there were some initial messages which we can put on the screen. James said, "Hello, I'm just now seeing these. I'm absolutely not on his side and would really, really appreciate it if you would leave me out of this. I only ever spoke to him because he manipulated me into thinking his situation was similar to what I went through." That's very interesting to me, because James Charles is 26 years old. He's a multimillionaire. He's very successful. I think in a lot of ways, in the way he conducts himself, he's not smart, but he's not a dumb person. The idea that James Charles was manipulated by a 20-year-old boy who can barely string a sentence together in the videos that I've watched, hard for me to believe.
Yes.
When he says he manipulated me into thinking his situation was similar to what I went through, I'm putting myself in James.
Again. Oh, it's raining really heavy. Again, something to note here is that James uses this victimhood that he loves to carry with him as a way of relating to people who are vulnerable. So in this, he's trying to relate to Evan by being like, oh, I dealt with something similar with the internet exposing me, hating on me. And it's like, gosh.
James's mind understand what he's suggesting. Because I think in James's mind, he was canceled for something that wasn't true. When he was canceled.
Hold on, did I have my window open? Like, why is rain hitting my floor? I have no idea what's going on. My windows are shut, but my floor is wet. Girl, living in these New York apartments.
For messaging underage boys. I think his side of the story is he thought that they were 18, but he did acknowledge that he was messaging.
It also is so ironic that, like, James Charles, with the bi sister, it all came down to this, like, straight boy, narrative. And then we have James Charles using that narrative of him using a straight boy or whatever. He's using that to get Evan, if you think about it.
Messaging 16-year-old boys. So I'm not sure exactly how in his brain he's edited history to make it different than what it was. And then he says, it was a really personal and sensitive topic that I had empathy for. Do you feel like James Charles was assisting Evan because he had empathy for him?
I feel that James Charles was helping him out because he wanted a relationship with Evan Johnson.
A physical
relationship.
relationship.
Physical relationship.
As soon as I saw Kayla's video, I felt disgusting and awful, and I've stopped responding to him altogether. Now, to me, that's interesting because we've obviously had private conversations. We've spoken extensively to Kayla.
Yes.
And the biggest thing that I wanted to understand before I was deciding if I really wanted to do a deep dive and look into this case is there definitive proof that James Charles knew that Evan Johnson was an abuser and then pursued a sexual relationship with him afterward? Because that's the most concerning aspect of it all. And from speaking to Kayla, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there was a situation where James Charles had wanted Evan Johnson and Kayla Malik to do a promotional material for his painted company for Valentine's Day, kind of having them be a couple of some kind, probably for his blush launch or something like that. Looking back, that's obviously a little bit creepy because knowing that the entire time he was interacting with them, he wanted Kayla.
No, that's crazy because in James's response, he does bring this up as well. And when you read the messages knowing this context now, it's like, oh my fucking God, this was his plan all along.
Out of the picture, and he's really the one that wanted Evan. That's already a
But
little...
also that Zack is telling stories that link up here, in my opinion.
bit bizarre. Yes. So then James had reached out to Kayla and said something along the lines of, are we still good to do this Valentine's Day project? And Kayla said, oh, so funny. Actually, we literally just broke up yesterday. Evan did some of the worst things a human being could ever do to someone to me, abused me, explained the situation. And then James said...
So James came back after she said that and was like, can I have him now? Kayla thought he was completely joking. Like, literally thought...
Again, I'm pretty sure Zack is saying this before James ever posted the screenshot. So, I mean, I'm believing a lot of what is being said here about James. And also, I very rarely will believe anything that comes out of James Charles's mouth. Can I have him?
Thought her best friend, which is, James at the time, was just joking with her, saying that.
But that's already like a really inappropriate joke.
Yeah, that's...
Even if it is, but little did we know he wasn't joking at all.
No.
So that's where I'm concerned because also, regardless of that, Kayla had already posted a live and people were discussing Evan Johnson being an abuser. It wasn't as clear, it wasn't as mainstream as it is now, But if the public knew, James knew.
Yeah.
And obviously,
And also, if James can find videos as niche as Zach's one and contact him within 5 minutes, then he can find things about Evan or Kayla.
James knew because he's admitting to helping him. What were you helping him with? You were helping him with these accusations. So James knew.
Yes.
That's a fact. The only question is he either didn't believe Kayla or he didn't care. Which one do you think it was?
He didn't care. James didn't care. He saw that, you know, Evan was good looking. He thought, you know, he obviously even told Evan, like, you're everything that, like, I look for in a guy. You have abs, you work out, you take care of yourself, you're super tall, and, you know, you're a man.
He said Evan's everything he looks for in a man. Abusive, manipulative, pathological liar.
So on, yeah.
20 years old, I guess. That's what James looks for.
Wow.
So the other thing that he added was he's obviously
saying to Evan, you're everything I look for in a man is crazy.
manipulating and lying to everyone. I should have never spoken to him, but you were in the car with him, so I don't think it's fair and you're making a video accusing me of being some monster when he had you convinced too. I want to let you comment on that, but the reason why that bothers me is that you were friends with Evan and you didn't know Kayla. So that's where this dynamic is interesting because you have the victim and you have the abuser. You were friends with the abuser, and when you found out, you still sided with the victim, Kayla, and stood by her. He was friends with Kayla. He was friends with the victim.
Yes.
And he didn't believe her and then circumvented their entire friendship to go behind her back and pursue a physical relationship with this person who did awful, unspeakable things that we can't even say or this video would get banned.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that?
I mean, it's sickening to know that he, you know, had went to that point, and I'm also getting a lot of, you know, messages of saying, why didn't you come forwards? Or, you know, how do you guys know that, you know, James wasn't manipulated just like I was? And, like, again, I want to clarify. I started being friends with Evan as hanging.
But why does this keep happening to James? Why is that always an excuse when he gets called out for things?
Out with Evan in January, I have known of him. I did not know Kayla whatsoever. Like, when I say whatsoever, at all. So I was only hearing one side of the story, which was Evan's side of the story.
And you didn't even know her as a public figure.
No, my nieces, I guess, had watched her after I brought it up, but, like, I never, you know, I'm sure I've probably seen her on my For You page, but I just never really engaged in, you know, into that content, which going back, I wish I had because she makes amazing content.
Right. He also added, okay, I'd really appreciate it if you could take down your videos until we have an opportunity.
Oh my god! James Charles is at Coachella doing PR damage control, trying to get people to take down their videos saying their experience of him. James, what the
We need to
fuck?
talk. Sorry again, it took me this long to see your messages. He was at Coachella while this was happening. Why do you think he wanted to speak on the phone with you?
I feel that his goal was
It's also really funny going back and, like, looking at James's photos at Coachella this year and being like, oh, actively during this time he was freaking the fuck out.
he wanted to get me on the phone because obviously it's harder to get receipts. And I was nervous by, you know, like, oh, am I going to take a phone call with James Charles? Like, because I'm here for Kayla. I'm standing up for Kayla this whole time. Why, after me confronting, you know, him and, you know, putting this on the internet, why should he deserve a phone call from me? I never did take the phone call, but I feel that in some type of way he was going to tell me to keep my videos down and offer me a certain amount of money. I have known that James is known to do that. Because why I say that is, why would he come back in a message and say, can you take the videos down until we have a chance to talk?
I have no doubt in my mind that James would spend a large sum of money to prevent this story from being exposed to the public. That's there. Yeah. Because that's how influencers make their money off their reputations and this idea that you know them when you really don't, and you have these social relationships. And that's why it's so hard sometimes to not go after people, but it's hard to hold people accountable. Because people, and young people specifically, and he has a very young fan base of young girls. That's primarily his demographic, which is why it's so alarming. And I think that people have a right to know the human being behind the camera. I'll just quickly add as well, there was one final message, which I believe you didn't respond to. And he did say that you were telling the truth here. He said, I originally did tell him he shouldn't respond because he's a fucking dumbass and would never be able to defend himself. He's not just a dumbass, he's an abuser who almost unalived someone,
Yeah.
sure, continuously devaluing the situation. Coachella is my busiest time of year, so my DMs are insane. I genuinely didn't see them. I got tagged in your video.
Oh my god, he's doing PR damage control and then being like, sorry, I'm at Coachella and I'm at my busiest time period of the year. You're the one that reached out to Zack first.
On TikTok, and that's how I saw them and responded back immediately. I really appreciate you reaching out. I wish I would have seen them sooner. I'm really sorry he treated you like shit. He definitely needs help from professionals. I think James needs help from professionals, and I
Yes.
think Evan needs to be in jail.
That's exactly how it should go. Kayla deserves justice. Evan needs to be locked up for a very, 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 very long ass time. And James needs a lot of help. And when I say help from professionals, I think that maybe he was meaning himself. No, he wasn't meaning himself, but deep down, he should read that message, and I think he needs to go get help.
So can you tell me about the weekend that James Charles and Evan Johnson spent together?
Yes, absolutely. So I was the only person that knew that Evan was going to LA
Crazy.
and that James was
Crazy.
flying him out to LA. So
James was flying him out, is what we're being told. Evan did. Oh my god.
it was a very last minute thing. James continued to beg, like, come to LA, like, we can have some fun, you know, we can hang out, hang around the house, like, you know, we can just, you know, chill. But I think it's just best that you can come out here and, you know, get your mind off things, which didn't sit right with me because I was there for Evan every single day through all the hard days and saw some of them.
But do you want his dick? Because that's literally what James... it's so crazy. And the fact he tried to excuse it as, I just thought he could come over and watch movies and we could hang out and stuff. Bitch, that literally is the definition of like Netflix and chill. Fuck you.
Most like disturbing things was some of the fact that I had to pretty much save him, you know? So very last minute, he goes to LA. Flies to LA. I dropped Evan off at the airport. By any chance, do you have that date written down?
I do. I believe it was February 28th.
February 28th, he flew
Do
out.
you have his boarding pass?
Yes, I do.
I did
Oh my
verify
God.
everything that you said.
Wow.
So we have his boarding pass and folder, and he was flying from Nashville to Burbank.
Yes, correct.
You dropped him off
At BNA Airport.
and picked him up.
Yes, and picked him up. So during the time of him at LA, he had posted on his story a few, I think it was 1 or 2 snaps. I believe it was 2 snaps.
Evan, just to clarify, Evan had posted on his
Yes,
story,
Evan had posted on his story.
which we do have here. Okay, so Evan had posted on his story these photos.
Yes, can I see that? Okay, so yes. So these photos right here. So this one is him just saying, "What's up, Snap?" I mean, Kayla had already called on but did not have proof. She, during this time, was like, the trees, you know, like, obviously, like, she's been to James's house. Like,
Oh, wow. Oh, so these ones are the ones that were at James's house. Which is also crazy that he's, like, documenting and making fucking content during this. Like, of course he never liked James for James, which makes James so much more embarrassing.
it's not hard to notice, like, what's in the backyard. This one is right here. He posted also on his story.
And tagged the fucking location.
Tag the neighborhood. It's
Yeah.
a small neighborhood in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can see, you know, where it says of like where it's exactly at. But he says gonna do a little photo dump. The reason he had to do a photo dump, and I was well aware of why he had to do a photo dump, was for he couldn't post any more content. Like he had to just post like what was saved in his memories on Snap.
Wow.
Just so he can continue to make money on the creator fund of Snapchat. So then he goes working on something special. There was nothing special he was working on. If anything that was special that he was working on, I would say, I guess, working on James.
Oh, gosh.
And the only reason of that is during the stay, we were in contact. He actually FaceTimed me. He was Snapchatting me there. But there was a text message that Kayla had messaged James and said, you know, crazy question around the lines of crazy question, but by any chance, is Evan with you? James plays dumb and he goes, Evan, question mark?
And we've seen all these texts, and he literally flat out lied to her. And then whenever he got exposed by Zack, messaged Kayla at Coachella as well, being like, girl, we need to meet up, we need to meet up.
And she's like, my ex, Evan. And then he comes back, and James comes back and goes, why would I be with Evan? Evan was sitting right beside James, as James was literally lying to Kayla, which should have been his best friend.
And number one, I just want to add, this is already, it makes you a shitty friend. If there was no abuse involved in the situation, for you to go behind your girlfriend's back and then swoop in and steal her boyfriend that's 6 years younger than you, that's already something that's
Yup.
very morally questionable.
age
at
thing
the
as
very least, for
well.
being generous. When you add any abuse allegations and layer that into the psychology of what James was really doing, it's very disturbing. And I also just want to add that something that we do also have in our folder, which is very damning evidence, which we will not be putting on the screen because we aren't going to dox where someone lives, but you have a screenshot that we verified, which is a Find My iPhone screenshot of Evan being at James's house on the exact weekend that you're claiming. Someone explain why you screenshotted that?
So the whole point was screenshotting that was because prior to Evan leaving out and going to LA, he was like, I'm going to James's huge mansion, like huge. And I was like, is it that big? So once he gets there, it took him a minute, you know, to get to the house. But once he was there, and obviously they did not leave the house whatsoever, I got to looking and I was like, this is not a big mansion. It might be a nice, decent house, but it's not a mansion like Evan was claiming, because me and Evan would always bet, like just as we'd be dumb and just bet money on stupid stuff. So we made a bet that like, you want to bet? Like, I promise you it's a mansion. So I took a screenshot of it to like,
Again, this is so crazy and just goes to show to James. Is he not embarrassed that even though he is doing all of this, which is so fucking evil and whatever, that somehow still these people are using him? Like the young boys or, you know, the straight boys or whatever like that. Like, while James will put them in such bad positions or whatever like that, they all know going into it that they're making fun of him. They don't care for him, whatever. And he is so desperate that he goes along with it.
like when he came back, he was like, so like it's a nice house, and yes, it's probably a very, very expensive house, and it is, but it's not a mansion. Don't get me wrong, it is nice, but it's not a mansion.
Classified as a mansion.
No, absolutely not. So that's why I took the screenshot. But we're here now. Like everything happens for a reason, and I'm so glad that maybe that bet was put in for a reason, because I was able to screenshot
Because
that.
people feel like you're not telling the truth, but that's really impossible to question that.
Oh, absolutely.
And to your knowledge, what happened between them on that weekend together?
So on that weekend, Evan had Snapchatted me, and he was laying in James's bed. And James's bed, as I can go back and think, is pretty much solid white comforter, white sheets, white pillowcases, just very, natural.
so weird.
And it was a very large bed because Evan snapped. It was like just woke up. He didn't have a shirt on, and he was literally in James's bed. And he was like, I was literally like, this is the nicest bed I have ever have slept in. And I was like, oh snap. Well, it took him quite a bit of time, to keep snapping me back, which Evan's pretty good at snapping back. Well, so I had booked a photo shoot, and when I say booked a photo shoot, like it was all on me. He didn't have to pay anything. Because
Just again, taking it back, him talking to Kayla telling him about what Evan was doing, and then James going out of his way to fly that person out to his house just so they can sleep in his bed. Allegedly.
because he was planning on getting into modeling after he came back from LA. Well, the modeling shoot was supposed to be Monday morning, and we were supposed to leave Monday morning and get to North Carolina, and it would be that following day, and then he had to come back and go to Miami. So it was like crunching time and stuff. And it was hard for me to even get that date, and I got that date. Well, on Sunday, he messaged me and was like, hey, I'm gonna stay an extra night just because, me and James haven't really got to, spend some time together and actually hang out completely one-on-one the whole time. So James ended up changing my flight and all of that.
So James basically convinced Evan to stay longer.
Yes, stay till that Monday, and he flew out that Monday.
So was there anything specific that Evan had snapped you in the duration of the weekend you were spending with James?
Yes, so he had snapped me a picture of him and James, and it was late at night because Evan had already told me that they've had to order food, they couldn't leave, they could not do anything because apparently paparazzi would see James and take pictures, and then it could open a whole thing that doesn't need to be opened
Was he
up.
scared of the paparazzi or was he scared of Kayla?
Probably Kayla because it was definitely probably scared of Kayla. So Evan had snapped me and it was a picture, and when I say dressed from all the way top to bottom in all black, even with ski mask on, they were literally walking because they haven't been out of the house. They wanted to go for a walk together, so they went for a walk in his neighborhood together, but wearing literally all black. And I literally snapped him back. I was like, "What the actual heck are you guys
So
doing?"
weird.
What? I was confused. He goes, "We have to because apparently there's people stalking us also, and Kayla and Emma's apparently drove by and been stalking. So they were obviously hiding. James obviously knew what he was doing. He knew it was
So
wrong. He
weird.
knew it was sickening. He knew exactly what he was doing, but he was trying to protect himself. But he's a dumbass.
Oh. And then after they returned from their trip together, did Evan inform you of anything that happened between them?
Yes. So it took me a lot to get it out because I was like, Evan, I know the conversations that you guys have had. I've seen pictures. I know you've engaged back. I know the comments that he's said to you, Evan. I was like, what, did anything happen? He's like, no. But it was a no, just yes and no kind of thing. And I was like, just tell me. So later that evening, one night, he ended up wanting to go drink. I didn't really drink that much, and he actually drank and got pretty wasted. So I was like, so what all happened? What'd you guys get to do? What'd y'all do? And he was like, well, all we done was off together.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. And then he goes, money's money. Made the comment, money is money.
Oof.
Well, that's a bizarre comment.
Yeah, so I was confused with that. Then shortly after, where he was so drunk, there is, let's just say, something on his phone, and they did have sex.
So Evan had gotten drunk and then showed you on Snapchat or on his phone. There is a quick clip.
Yes, it was a very quick clip, and it was actually on Snapchat in his memories, but it was saved as camera roll for some odd reason.
And you believe this video depicted James Charles and Evan Johnson having sex?
Oh yes, 100%. You can hear 100%. It was.
What did you hear in the video?
So in the video, you could hear James calling Evan daddy and moaning. Very, very disturbing. I still, me thinking right now, I can picture it still. It's something I was like, oh, I was not expecting.
Oh, I did not know this got said in the video. That's a bold claim.
That, but when Evan comment back, money's money. So allegedly, I'm sure there was lots of money involved.
Oh
So you
my
do believe that James
god.
had paid Evan?
I do.
Some way? For me, it's interesting because whether or not you pay someone directly, like a Venmo or a bag of cash, you're still paying for his flights, paying for his food, possibly buying him things. He was obviously going to pay Evan and Kayla in the sponsorship that they were going to do for his business. So there's sort of vague ways to do that, but at the end of the day, you're still exchanging sex for money, especially when you're coercing someone who I believe to be straight.
As far as I know, his sexuality, Evan was straight.
Right, and it's hard to speculate because obviously it exists on a spectrum, but for the most part, he operated and identified as a straight man, which is actually James Charles's type, which introduces some issues of consent because you're approaching people and trying to coerce them to be in a relationship with you. And like Tati said in her By Sister video, crack their sexuality like an escape room. That's not the way that you should engage with people.
No.
And I also just want to
good
add in our
quote.
research, we have some reports that that weekend that they had spent together, James Charles had posted on his Instagram story that he was cooking pasta or something. And maybe if someone sees this video, they have a screenshot they can share with us.
Yes.
Although baking cookies, which is interesting because he's known to not really cook. To me, it's just icing on the cake because there's something so predatory about that. It's almost reminding me of a fairy tale and someone like a witch in a forest is cooking up cookies to lure the kids in to her house. It's just on top of
Literal
that.
kids,
Yes.
by the way.
So I also just want to draw attention to a snap that you took a photo of in which Evan messaged several people, including you, alleging that Kayla was lying, that he's actually the victim, and bragged that James Charles was on his side, giving him guidance on how to navigate the situation. And what prompted that entire conversation was Kayla going live and alluding to the abuse. Is that correct?
That's very correct.
I just want to include that as just further evidence.
Yes.
Really quickly as well, you had also said that you believe that James had invited Evan to Coachella.
Yes. So I was aware that I was witness the conversation of James saying that he's going to the first weekend of Coachella and that he buys his team or something, so many people, I don't know if it's his whole team or what, an artist wristband for Coachella. Well, he had bought Evan one. Obviously, Evan hadn't received it in the mail. I don't know if he was going to fly him there and give it to him. But the plan was for Evan to go to Coachella and he was going to have an artist band. But the only thing is Evan was a little nervous because he was more likely Kayla's going to be there. And it was going back and forth, and then James is they're trying to figure out how to work it out. But what stopped that is Kayla come forward to the world with her YouTube videos of 1 and 2,
Holy fuck. This same Coachella where James is reaching out to Zack and Kayla.
So obviously, James was not going to take him to Coachella then, because that would be insane.
So it wasn't enough for James to just have been told privately from someone who was his friend for years that this person did horrible things to me.
No, because he only cares when the public get involved and it can affect his reputation.
When it became public, that it became an inconvenience to him and he was willing to separate himself from Evan when it was a risk to his reputation.
Yes, it literally had to be public for James to, oh no, we can't do this and that. James is sick. He is a sick guy. He needs very much help. And this is something that the whole world needs to see.
In terms of your journey of discovering that Evan Johnson was an abuser, there's also something that happened specifically within your family, if you wanted to speak about that.
Yes, so it took the time for Kayla to come forward of her videos, and I have a cousin that is locally from, an area. And I don't want to, name the name just because it's considered private just right now until Kayla gets the chance to talk to her. But Evan had a apartment with a roommate in Hendersonville, Tennessee, when he caught his previous charges at the beginning. My cousin was hanging out with him. They were never dating. They were more as just, friends, but kind of in a talking stage. Well, she finally come forward to me and reached out. And I had my aunt texting me saying you need to stop hanging out with Evan. This is a big thing, stop. She reached out to me and finally let me know that Evan, was an alcoholic and he did drink a lot. But one of the nights she got really drunk and she wanted to go home. And he was like, you're not going home. She goes, I have a friend that can come pick me up. He goes, no, you plan to come over here to hang out with me and to plan to drink, but you are staying now. Not should, but you are staying now. So he made her go to his room and lay down. So Evan comes in there shortly after and starts touching her. And, and he was drunk and she just kept telling him, stop touching me. I don't want to be touched. I just want to leave. And she said she couldn't fall asleep. Well, shortly after that, she's not going to claim the R word because obviously she was drunk and under the influence, like she told me, but he did take advantage of her to have sex with her. And that's been really hard to know. And just knowing I was hanging out with Evan this whole time, and this happened also to my family, my cousin, my cousin I'm really close to.
And it's possible he has even more victims than just your cousin and Kayla. So I think the last question that I kind of wanted to ask you is looking back on your journey from going from friends with Evan Johnson to then standing by Kayla's side, what have you learned?
I've definitely learned a lot more about manipulation. I have never really experienced manipulation, so I was not aware of I'm being manipulated, he's lying to me kind of thing. And based off, what I experienced and went through with Evan, and then also seeing what Kayla went through, with Evan and also other people, the manipulation is real. And now I'm understanding how you can pick up a little quicker, definitely. And a big thing I do want to speak on is the reason that I did come forward and go against Evan is because there is not many men in this world that will sit here and take up for the victim. Men don't speak up. And I think that's something that we need more in the world. And this is why I'm here today, because I feel that this is something really big, just not on one aspect. Obviously, this goes, like you said, it goes deep. There's several different things to this story, and more men need to be comfortable enough, to speak up. So that's why I'm here today, to know that just because I was friends with Evan, if he done something wrong, and since he did these terrible things, absolutely, I'm going to speak against him.
Zach, thank you for speaking with me.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me.
Of course.
Okay, first of all, I'm so glad that I finally watched that because I have heard so many things about it. Now, again, I need to preface this with, it takes a lot for me to believe James Charles and what he says day to day anyways, but even when it came to Bye Sister, and he did that holding myself accountable video or whatever it was called, right? Or it ends here. Whatever the fuck it was called, right? That's not what it was called. What was it called? Bye Sister, girl, I don't know, but it was good. And I gave him credit for that, right? I truly don't believe a lot of what he says, but in that video I did. And then it's just been so many things now where I'm oh, you are a pathological liar. You are someone who's willing to lie to just save your career, work behind the scenes to kind of silence people, and it's gross. It's he fed into that narrative of Jeffrey doing that, you know what I mean? And it's you can't call it out while doing it at the same time. And I just believe that I can't believe he still has a platform. I think he uses his platform for just the most inappropriate, self-serving things. Yeah, I'm glad I got to watch this. There has been a lot that has happened since it. So I can't wait to dive into all that now. But again, it was kind of important for me to react to James's response first before watching this, just because that was more current information. But anyways, I will see you in my next one. I hope you're all doing very well, and goodbye.